So I feel like every so often we make these kinds of videos when it comes to Detroit Red Wings prospects. It's been a pretty in and out sort of topic. Like, we talk about these guys at the beginning of the year, we talk about when they were drafted, we go over the 1 year later kind of thing, but I feel like the past year and a bit was mostly filled with, maybe just Nate Danielson talk, to be honest, and then the occasional Trey Augustine video once in a while. In today's video, though, we actually do have ourselves some updates, because one of the newer Detroit Red Wings first-round prospects just had himself a pretty good showcase at the Olympic qualifiers, and I wanted to go out there and talk about it in a video here today. So, without further ado, let's talk about Michael Brandsegg-Nygård, the recent Detroit Red Wings first-round pick out of the 2024 NHL Entry Draft, taken by the Wings in the 15th overall spot. A lot of people, myself included, were a little bit challenging of the pick when it was made, not necessarily because MSB is a bad player, but because of the kind of player that he is. He is more so of a two-way, reliable, defensively minded, offensively contributive forward, and when you consider the fact that the Red Wings last year took Nate Danielson in the first round, and they also took Marco Kasper the year before in the first round as well, it gets you really thinking, and you say, hey, did the Red Wings just draft the same player in the first round 3 years in a row? Honestly, that debate isn't really that illogical of an idea, but it is something that I think is worth noting when you consider the patterns that Steve Yzerman has as a GM in the NHL. But either way, I digress. Part of the reason we are talking about MSB is because he had recently competed in the Olympic qualifying tournament for Team Norway. He had scored 2 goals in the 3-game sample he had, although it should be noted that the 2 goals he had were in 1 game against Team Japan. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see hockey teams of countries that you don't normally see take place in mainstream international tournaments. Japan, Great Britain, even Norway themselves. Either way, though, Team Norway did not end up winning, and they lost out to Team Denmark in the final game, thus ruining their chances of making the 2026 Winter Olympics. So either way, it wasn't really the most productive showing, it's not the result they wanted, but there still were some things to pay attention to out of Michael Brandsegg-Nygård. The 2 goals against Japan were both very nice. Let's take a look at those. The second goal in particular is the one that stands out the most to me, because this was an Alex Ovechkin one-timer. That was seriously it. The guy had an absolute bomb of a shot on the face-off circle. Just a really beautiful play, and honestly, that's not the kind of goal that you would expect to see out of a two-way, kind of minded, defensively focused winger. I mean, he absolutely unleashed it on goal. And now, to help us out with even more of what MSB is going to be up to, let's go over onto this article by Bob Duff from earlier yesterday on the 3rd, talking about how Brandsegg-Nygård is readying himself for the Detroit Red Wings. This topic is leaving for Detroit next week. The article opens up by talking about the Olympic qualifying tournament where he had 2 goals in the contest. It then goes out there and talks about Michael Brandsegg-Nygård's presence with the Skellefteå AIK in the CHL. No, not the Canadian Hockey League, but the Champions Hockey League in Europe. He's with us this week, and he'll play 2 CHL games. Skellefteå coach Robert Olsen was confirming to Swedish website Aftonbladet. Skellefteå will play Austria's Red Bull Salzburg on Friday and Germany's Straubing Tigers on Sunday in CHL competition. Then he goes to training camp and will play some practice games with the Red Wings, Olsen said. Then, Steve Yzerman and the boys have to make a decision on if he is NHL ready or if he's going to go back to Skellefteå. There it is. He is Detroit's player. Now, Michael Brandsegg-Nygård playing with Skellefteå AIK will be great, firstly, because he'll be playing with Axel Sandin Pellikka, but honestly, when you think about what the Red Wings have done and how they like to develop their guys, it would not surprise me in the slightest if MSB is in Sweden next season and he does not step foot on a North American rink for the entirety of the year. I mean, realistically, if the plan was for him to play in Europe, he's probably going to get that cup of coffee in the top Swedish league before heading over to the North American system in any form. He had played in the Allsvenskan this previous season and for Team Norway all over the place, so he was pretty good, but he needs to play SHL time. It's more than appropriate for him to go over and start playing in the top Swedish league after playing in the second tier this previous year. The jump from the Allsvenskan to the NHL would be huge, and I don't think Michael Brandsegg-Nygård, out of all people, is the one to make that jump and make it seem so easy. In fact, this article goes out there and even cites some comments made by MSB, where he says, "I'm going to do everything I can, and everyone wants to play in the NHL, but it's a very difficult goal right now." MSB told Norwegian website Nitten, "I doubt it will happen." I mean, yeah, you could talk about being realistic, you could talk about having the goals and having the path laid out to you. Of course, though, MSB I don't think is being unrealistic by saying he doesn't think he'll make the Red Wings this upcoming year, but that doesn't mean that he shouldn't try. It doesn't mean that he shouldn't show up to training camp and give it his best effort and put himself in a spot to earn brownie points with the Red Wings and their developmental staff. I think, honestly, when you consider the stint that he had last year, he only had 18 points in 41 games with Mora IK in the Allsvenskan, but he was a point-per-game guy in the qualification tournament. So that seriously indicates that there's more offensive potential than meets the eye with this player. In fact, he had a 5-point and 5-game stint at the regular World Juniors this previous season, too. And that's no easy slouch either for a guy who was 17-18 during the year. There certainly is more offensive potential, I would say, out of MSB than your stereotypical, run-of-the-mill, defensively-minded forward. You could compare and contrast this with Marco Kasper and Nate Danielson, and honestly, you could conclude that MSB has a pretty sizable amount more offensive touch than these guys. But of course, this seems to be more so of the mold that Steve Yzerman is going down when it comes to these players. You could even see it in the guys that are on the team right now. Dylan Larkin, defensive beast. Lucas Raymond, he's no slouch either. These guys can produce points whilst being responsible away from the puck as well, so it seems to me like Steve Yzerman is making it an intentional goal to build a team filled with guys that are all capable of doing that. Tyler Mott, super good at that. Christian Fischer, yeah, he's got that dog in him too. We'll just see where this goes over the next few years as Kasper, Danielson, and eventually Michael Brandsegg-Nygård make their presences known on the team. Either way, though, the Olympic qualifiers were previously concluded, and this is the latest we have seen. Brandsegg-Nygård with the 2 goals against Japan. Nice to see him getting on the board there and displaying some offense. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you're a Detroit Red Wings fan, how do you feel about this big update out of the latest first-round prospect out of Stevie Y and his goons? Do you like Michael Brandsegg-Nygård as a prospect? What are your thoughts on how he's going to perform in the Skellefteå AIK system this upcoming year? And if he, by some miracle, gets like a 9-game sample, a cup of coffee with the regular Detroit Red Wings this upcoming year, how well do you think he'll perform an NHL role heading into this upcoming year? He might get a preseason look or two, but he'll probably play the entire season with Skellefteå. That's just my bet right there. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.